Okay, let's dive right in. The situation in the Middle East right now, well, it feels incredibly tense.
It really does. You've got President Trump apparently weighing some pretty major decisions about Iran.
Yeah, and at the same time, Jerusalem's under a specific closure until Friday, plus alerts for Americans there.
hmm High stakes doesn't quite cover it, does it?
Un-
It seems to be moving very fast.
exactly. So, our goal here today for you listening is to try and, cut through some of the noise.
Go beyond just the headlines.
Right. We want to unpack the different layers here, pull out the key details, maybe some surprising facts, and give you that deeper context.
Using the sources we have, which give a specific snapshot, it's about understanding the players, what they're actually saying, and what it could all mean.
Okay, so the sources. What are we working with?
Well, it looks like we've got a mix. Direct quotes from President Trump, some reporting from Washington,
Okay.
and also insights from an Israeli special envoy for combating anti-Semitism. So, different angles.
Good. Multiple perspectives are key here. Let's start with that U.S.-Iran standoff. The words versus the actions. It seems quite polarized.
Very much so. So, President Trump's take is pretty blunt.
What's he saying?
He's quoted saying Iran should have made the deal 60 days ago, and now they wish they would have done it.
Right, a sort of told you so stance.
Kind of. And crucially, he also claims Iran want to meet, even suggesting they want to come to the White House and that he's open to it.
Okay, but then Iran's response.
Immediately contradicts that. Flat out rejection of coming to Washington.
How did they phrase it?
Their statement says, no Iranian official has groveled at the gates of the White House. Pretty strong language.
Yeah, definitely.
And they add they will not negotiate under duress or peace under duress. So a complete counter-narrative.
And they also mentioned something about a despicable lie.
Yes, accusing the U.S. of planning to take out the Iran supreme leader. So you see this deep mistrust, these completely opposing views on even just the possibility of talks.
It's a huge gap. And while all this talking or not talking is happening, there's military movement.
Significant movement. U.S. assets are reportedly pouring into the region.
And the sources mentioned something specific, like Fordo.
Yes, they mentioned a potential ground option for destroying Fordo, massive nuclear weapons complex, with the elite commandos from 501.
Wow, Fordo, that's the heavily fortified underground site, right?
Exactly. Mentioning a ground option for that facility, well, it signals just how seriously these military options are potentially being considered.
So is this just posturing, or is there a plan?
Well, according to the Wall Street Journal reporting mentioned in our sources, President Trump has approved an attack plan for Iran.
Approve.
Approved, but, and this is key, he's apparently holding up to see if Tehran will abandon the nuclear program.
So it's like the threat is the leverage,
Yeah.
maximum pressure.
Precisely. It seems to be part of that strategy, yes.
Mm.
But, a strategy with incredibly high risks of things spiraling.
And while these big powers maneuver, what about the people actually in the region, civilians, U.S. citizens?
Well, there's a really alarming detail in the sources. The largest hospital in the country, in Israel, was reportedly hit by an Iranian ballistic missile.
A hospital hit, that's huge. The humanitarian side of this is stark.
Absolutely. And right after that reported hospital strike, the U.S. Embassy told its staff, the source says, U.S. implacable employees, perhaps meaning essential personnel to shelter in place.
So direct danger even to diplomatic staff. It brings it home, doesn't it? It's not abstract.
Not at all. And then you have the ambassador to Israel, Michael Huckabee, putting out an urgent notice for American citizens who want to leave.
Evacuations.
The embassy is working on evacuation flights and cruise ship departures. It really paints a picture of urgency and potential danger on the ground.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. The broader picture, the alliances, the motivations. What about Israel's perspective on Iran?
The Israeli special envoy we mentioned earlier, their assessment is very firm. They believe there's zero chance Iran will voluntarily give up its nuclear program.
Zero chance. That's definitive.
And the language used is incredibly strong. They characterize Iran as a genocidal Islamic regime.
That's very strong language.
Yes, fueled by anti-Semitism, according to the envoy, with a mission not just against Israel, the quote is the small devil, but also against the U.S., the big devil, and civilization itself.
So they see it as an existential threat, fundamentally.
Clearly. And the envoy reinforces this by claiming Iran continues to target civilians, children, people sleeping in their beds. It's a picture of relentless aggression.
Now, other major powers are involved here too, right? Russia?
Yes, apparently President Trump spoke with President Putin, and Putin offered to help mediate.
How did Trump respond to that offer?
Quite pointedly, it seems. The quote is, mediate your own and mediate Russia first. And you can worry about this later.
Suggests some skepticism about Russia's role, maybe? Or just a deflection?
It could be interpreted that way, yes. Like, deal with your own problems first.
And China. Are they involved?
There's reporting mentioned from the Telegraph that China sent Mr. Reed transport planes to Iran.
Transport planes? Couldn't be anything, I suppose.
Well, the source notes that these planes often carry military weapon, so it adds another layer of potential support or alignment there.
This brings us to that concept the Israeli envoy mentioned, an axis of evil.
Axis of evil, yes. That's the framework presented. Iran and its partners.
Okay, an axis of evil.
The envoy suggests this axis feels emboldened by the lack of moral clarity, particularly referencing the period since the October 7th attacks.
Right.
And this axis, they argue, uses proxies that have been placed around the world, with Israel being seen as the front lines of this current showdown.
It frames the conflict in very broad ideological terms.
Absolutely. And anti-Semitism is presented as central to it. The envoy calls it a 1,000-year-old hatred.
That begins with the Jews, but never ends with the Jews. I think I saw that quote.
Exactly. And they connect this to a tsunami of anti-Semitism post-October 7th, spreading blood libel.
Which is that horrific ancient accusation.
Yes, that incites violence. The envoy claims this fuels cold-blooded murder, even citing examples in Washington and Boulder, Colorado. It connects the regional conflict to global anti-Semitism.
It's a powerful and deeply troubling connection being drawn there, and this brings us tragically to the human cost. The hostages.
Yes, the sources mention the 53 human beings languishing in that terror tunnel's intentions. It puts a human face back on these vast geopolitical shifts.
And the link is made directly to Hamas.
Explicitly. Hamas is described as the genocidal terror proxy of Iran, built up over decades.
With weapons, funding, and those tunnels. The source mentions them being longer than the New York subway system.
An incredible image highlighting the scale of that infrastructure.
And how does the international response, or lack thereof, fit into this, according to the sources?
Well, the perspective presented is that the continued holding of these hostages, this violation of law and morality, has been met with international silence, false moral equivalency, and impunity.
And the implication is that this silence
has, in a way, enabled or even encouraged the escalation we're seeing now, that impunity is seen as contributing to the current stage of the conflict.
So wrapping this all together,
Yeah.
for you, our listener, we've touched on quite a bit. This intense U.S.-Iran dynamic, the conflicting messages.
The very real impact on the ground, the evacuations, the hospital strike.
Then the wider network, Russia, China, Israel's perspective, this axis of evil idea.
And the deep human tragedy of the hostages linked back to Iran's proxies. And